sermon is based this morning on the reading from Corinthians, and it's entitled, So We Do Not Lose Heart. So we do not lose heart. And St. Paul, when he's talking about this passage, he gets it. It's been a hard go for St. Paul in his life. He's had his challenges. He's coming to the church in Corinth, not for the first time, but for the second time. And there are issues. Things that we would never have here, but you might have heard about them before. Discussions about money. Discussions about behaviors. Discussions about worship. And I'm being polite when I use the word discussions. There are all kinds of things going on in the community that St. Paul has come to address. And remember the backdrop, that it was St. Paul who wanted to get rid of Christianity. Could you imagine that? Trying to physically stamp out Christianity and killing people who profess Jesus as Lord. He had done that in his life. He gets struggle. He gets it big time. And there are many struggles. And so this is why he's at Corinth. He's addressing these people. And so we do not lose heart. And I was wondering, how in the world does that apply to us today? Well, the core message is struggling with this concept of Jesus inside of us. Is where I'm trying to go and help you understand, and myself understand, a word of hope. Because there are days when the struggles mount up, and the sorrows mount up. And it gets deep, and there are lots of them. And there are chambers in our hearts which are filled with concerns. And it seems dark. And it seems as if there is no hope. And so for first century Christians who were petrified to be called Christians, because after all, look at what happened to Jesus. And for us today, in this time and place, it's the resurrection that brings hope out of the darkness. It brings blooms and blossoms just like are happening outside our door this morning. The grass is greener, the air is cleaner. The flowers are just a bit brighter because they've been blessed with a little shower of rain. There's a whole new way of life that this resurrection has in mind for you. I'm reminded of the groom, a fiancé, who brought her soon-to-be husband home to meet mom and dad. I don't want you to have any mistake about how we understand the message this morning. So she had her introductions made, and the groom-to-be and the father-in-law-to-be went to the library for a discussion. And Dad said, "Well, son, what do you plan to do for a living?" "Well, I'm going to study theology, and I'm going to become a pastor." "Oh, that's good. How do you propose to provide for my daughter?" "Oh, God will provide." "And then when you have children, how do you think you'll provide for the children?" He said, "Well, God will provide." "I see." After they had met and parted, the girl's mother asked the father-in-law, "What did he say, and how did it go in the library?" And the father-in-law said, "Well, he doesn't have much of an ambition for a career. He won't have much money. But the good thing is, he thinks I'm God." Now, no mistaking this morning. The Jesus Christ we're talking about is the one and only. The one and only. He lifts us up in these struggles and in the darkness. And Paul knows from his own conversion and from what happened to Jesus and what can happen to us that this I'm talking about this morning is gift. It's pure gift. Pure and simple gift. I'm talking about grace. I'm talking about renewed life. I am talking about eternal life, all of which is found only in Jesus. It's not just for the Corinthians from a long time ago. Yes, it's a wonderful story. But these words, so we do not lose heart, I need to hear them today. And I need to know them. And you do too. Because life isn't easy and it's not simple. To grow in the faith and to say yes to God. To learn what grace is all about. Be a grateful people and a graceful people. To be appreciative. To live, as they say, with an attitude of gratitude. There are roses blooming on this very property this morning. And we can look at those roses and we can see the incredible beauty or we can see thorns. It's the same plant. How do you see life? How do you understand it? Oh, I'm not denying that the thorns aren't there. You grab a hold of it, you know the thorns are there, right? That hurts. On the other hand, who can deny the beauty and the splendor and the marvelous aroma of a rose on a morning like this? And so it becomes a discipline, this faith practice. And it's not easy in our independent, self-serving sort of world that we live in, because we are taught to say that I am number one. Why, Paul? Why is the resurrection and the resulting gratitude so important for us to know and to get? In our world, there are difficult, dangerous, demanding ways. Many minuses, if you want to go on that column, no question. We can easily lose heart. Easily. But by carrying the death of Jesus in our own bodies, I know we don't like to talk about this, we find a new reality. This past spring, Nancy and I traveled up to Scales Mound for a farmer friend back from Sycamore years ago, dear family. The patriarch had died, John. And we were talking afterwards, and they knew I'm a pastor, and I was talking to them about death. And his father was quite a man of faith. And I said, it's important to come to an understanding of death so that we can be free to live in this life. And they asked me, are you afraid of death? I said, that's a great question, and I wrestled with it for a long time. But you know what? I'm not. I'm not afraid to die. I don't want to die any more than anybody else here wants to die. But I'm not afraid of death once I understand the power of the resurrection. Now, Paul names the realities of our lives and helps us with this concept because it's not natural to us. We have an inherent instinct to live, to breathe. Hold yourself underwater for a second. What do you want to do? You want to get up and take a big breath. It's an instinct. It's a powerful one. But Paul names the realities of our lives about this taking heart business. He says we have an inner self, the part I was talking about with our young people, that gets afraid, that gets burdened, that gets filled with doubts and with concerns. And we have an outer part. The outer nature is what we see, how we know each other, right? It's our skin, it's our flesh. Our inner nature is eternal, I'm suggesting to you. And our outer nature is very much temporary. Here today, gone tomorrow. Our outer nature is what is seen. You heard in the scriptures the word seen and unseen. Our inner nature is what is unseen. And so the outer nature tells us the truth that we don't like to hear, that all of us, we don't know the date, but we have an expiration. One day we're not going to be here. We know that in our heads. We just don't like to talk about it. We don't like to think about it. One day we will die. Yes, of course, Pastor, we all know that. But why do we have to talk about it? The truth is, in our culture, we are in great denial of death. There are many ways that we'd like to put this off. Try and have a conversation about end-of-life matters. Even up the street at CGH, when we're staring at it in the face, try and have that talk. How many of us here have their funeral plans made, knowing that one day we will expire and we will die? And one of the greatest gifts we can give our family is to come to Pastor and say, here, I like these hymns, I like these readings. I want to have green Jell-O with raisins on the table downstairs afterwards, right? You can't miss the good stuff, right? How many of us have thought about that? One day they'll be needed, prayerfully many years down the road for all of us. I'm not talking about expediting. I am talking about living in the meantime, knowing that that plan is made. In the United States of America, we spend billions of dollars a year on the outer nature. Hair transplants, wrinkle creams, right? Products of every kind. We have surgeons that'll take the skin back here and pull it like this and get those doggone wrinkles out of your neck, right? They do all kinds of enhance certain parts of your body. Woo! We spend a lot of money denying death, the natural, normal progression of aging. Now, we can slow it down a little bit with some Noxzema anti-wrinkle cream, and we can get a surgery done and make us look good for a couple more years, but guess what? We're still human. At the end of the day, it's still going to happen, right? We're going to age. We remember from Isaiah 40, As I was reading some thoughts from one of the pastors, Gibson Stroop, he reminded me of Isaiah 40. All flesh is grass, here today, blooming green, gone tomorrow. Like the rose on the bush, here today, stunningly beautiful, incredibly aromatic, beauty beyond what you could capture. People have tried to print it for years. You can't capture the beauty of a real live rose in your hand. It's stunning, but it's gone tomorrow, right? It does not last forever. The truth is that we have a purpose and a meaning beyond our bodies and the events of our lives which so profoundly take front and foremost care and concern of our energies and of our thoughts and of our time. We belong to God, and we are at home only and mostly in Christ, even in the midst, and especially in the midst of our decay and loss. Our inner nature, St. Paul says, is being renewed as we tend to it. So in today's world, we have lots of words for this matter of hunger for God, right? We talk about being spiritual, but not religious, which really means I want God on my terms and I get to say who God is, rather than religious, which means we come together like this morning and we say, yeah, I need to be filled spiritually, but there's also my brother and sister that I'm here to care for. And especially the one that gets beat up in life. And there are plenty in the pews this morning who are getting beat up in life. And so being religious means we care and we love for one another. But in our day, we want to be spiritual, but not religious. In our day, we want to think about our consciousness being raised, and we want to have a new identity, a new makeover, if you will. Today's search for God brings meaning and purpose in ways St. Paul is quite profoundly professing for us. He says those words so we don't lose heart. Even though our outer nature is wasting away, at whatever age we are, in God's time, it's all wasting away, but we are being renewed internally day by day. And so this helps us with this slight momentary affliction. Sometimes it doesn't feel so slight, does it? It takes it over. It covers us up. It buries us with hurts and concerns. Because we look at what can be seen, but we need to think about what's unseen. Because what can be seen is temporary, Paul says. And what cannot be seen is eternal. And so in today's search for God, for meaning and purpose, as we gather around this passage, we need to reclaim, to encourage our imaginations and the wonderful mystery of who God is, how the Spirit moves in our midst in ways that are profound and make all the difference. To meet Him here, that when our earthly bodies are laid to rest, our lives end, that we have a home with God. He's the one who made us in the beginning. It's as we say at the funeral so often, as we said Thursday, for Lois, baptized and called, having lived the full life of 94 years plus, a beautiful life. She comes back home to the one who made her in the beginning, who called her and claims her forever and ever. This is where it comes real. We not only believe in life after death, however, there is more. We believe in the resurrection also for the here and the now. How does this work after death? This is God's great mystery. How does heaven work? I haven't been there. I'm not in a hurry, but I can't wait when the day comes. Because as I understand it, it's a gift beyond my wildest imagination. But the resurrection releases us not only for eternity when we die. When that stone was rolled away and Jesus rose from the dead on Easter morning, that was also for today. That those chambers of your heart that are filled with that grief and sorrow would be brought into the light of day by Jesus' presence. That's what the resurrection is. It means that death does not have the last word when that day comes, so that we can be freed now to live in the presence with that knowledge in faith. Our names are known by God. We are raised by Jesus and with Jesus from the dead. And so it's very good news indeed. Because without it, we do lose heart. And with it, even in spite of the chains that bind us and the load that we are pulling, we do not lose heart. Even if our outer nature is wasting away, it's our inner natures which are sustained and made full and strong and filled with hope. It's God's incredible, miraculous, profound gift for you and for me this day. All for the receiving. This free gift of grace, of renewal for the here and the now by the resurrection as you live your life day to day, knowing that eternally there's a room for you. There's a lot of rooms up there, it says in John 14. There are many rooms in my mansion, and I've got one for you. And when I put your name in the book of life, when you are baptized, you are mine. When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. And when you walk through the fire, you shall not be burned. For I am the Lord your God, the Holy One of this whole world. After all, it is God who made it, and you and me included. And he will not abandon us, now or forever. Amen.